What's going on, YouTubers? It's kind of cold out and I got hat on. Just came back from a truck auction. Spoke with a friend of mine. One of his friends or his cousin has a 60 Series Detroit, and I know 60 Series Detroits I know them fairly good. I'm not gonna say I'm professional at it, but I had few of them, and actually become to that point. I actually got a 60 Series Detroit book, and at one point in time I studied this thing and I worked on lots of them. So besides the point, I got one of the old injectors. That's what a DDAC 4 60 Series injector looks like. It's actually one of my old injectors from my Peterbilt when I had one with the Detroit, and this injector came from Idaho. I stopped at the dealer, bought one, and replaced it. What happened with this one, it's actually started leaking fuel from underneath the magnet housing. That's what they call this, magnet housing. This is basically a plunger valve, and this is a tip. So this part right here with the carboned up, as you guys can see, let the camera pick up, that's what it goes in your combustion chamber. And lately I actually got one truck sitting at the shop right now, not the shop, on the yard. There's a Freightliner outside. I worked on it yesterday, and the 60 Series Detroits can create a problem. They will, till they cold, they run fine, and then when they warm up, they not quite missing, but they sounds like they're missing it. They kind of start running rough, and then if you put them under load, sometimes they run just completely fine. Sometimes they feel like they run really, really rough. So what happened is, the problem will never it will not throw the code. So the check engine light is not going to be on. So you're kind of going to be clueless, and you can bring it to the Detroit, and they will they're going to say, well, we don't know what happened with it, and they're kind of going to look at the wire harness. I'm not saying all the time, but quite often that's what happens. You have this tip goes in the combustion chamber, sprays the fuel out of here, and then is injector cup sitting like this. And I actually do have a 60 Series Detroit head. Right there is the injector cup. That's where the injector goes in, and that hole goes into combustion chamber. So the Detroit themselves come out with a carbon, they call it carbon O-ring, which goes on the tip up here. It kind of sticks out like this and like that. And there's a bigger O-ring. You just drop it right on top of the injector cup. Let's go back here, show you where the injector cup, see where the brass injector cup starts, way down there. It's kind of light with the brass color, or it's a copper. I think it's copper. There's O-ring drops there. That protects from coolant to get it into combustion chamber. So you're gonna have a carbon O-ring goes on here, and then the O-ring drops an injector cup, which is gonna be sitting right up here, kind of like right here. And when you put the injector and you squeeze in, this O-ring presses against the injector, and will press against injector cup. And when the combustion goes, this gets built up with the carbon around, so the gases doesn't bypass. And the reason it's so important, so the gases don't bypass this, and they will go inside. That's your fuel port coming in right here, has a screen on it, and this is your return. So quite often there's O-ring. If you don't have the kid or somebody replaced the 6 injector, put a 6-pack in it, they never put those carbon ring and this rubber ring, the gases will bypass and they go inside here, and you start getting air in your fuel system. And that's why you start having problem, kind of like it's missing, but it's not missing, and it seems like it's running fine, but it's not running very fine. You get poor fuel economy, and the thing starts sputtering and no check engine light on. A lot of times, a lot of mechanics will say, well, that's your injector harness, so that's this. But the most important thing, how you notice this, when it's cold, you start your engine up and it's run completely fine, and then it warms up, you start having a problem. I would say 80% of the time, you most likely have a blown injector O-ring, which is bottom injector O-ring. There's 1, 2, and 3. But then in the aftermarket, well, it's not quite aftermarket, Detroit come out themselves, you instead of have 3 O-rings, you're gonna have 4th one and a 5th one. Well, they call it carbon washer, to be more politically correct. That's what it's called. And I don't have one. I used to have them, but I think I threw them away. They kind of look like a bunch of hair kind of tied together and dipped in a lead, and it's very flexible and stop falling out. So you just put it on and put your injector in and torque them. Don't quite remember what the injector needs to be torqued at. I think it's 55 pounds. But that's how the 60 series injector looks like. And if you have a 60 series and you're kind of trying to figure out what the problem is, I would check into it, and they call it injector reseal kits, O-rings. And if they give you 3 of them, ask for the 4th one and the 5th one from a bottom up. One over here, there's another one gonna go here, this one, and that orange one. But like this injector is completely fine. Besides, it was leaking fuel from right underneath here, not through this hole, just underneath the magnet housing or valve body. Some people call it different. And how I end up with this injector is I bought a new one, paid the core for it, and then I never brought the damn thing back. And the dealer over here in basically hometown, they don't want to take it because I'm not the one. I didn't buy a new injector from them. So that's all I got. 60 series Detroit video. Thanks for watching.